Call the meeting at the Bay County Veterans Affairs Committee together at a little after 3 p.m. A roll call from, I believe, our Assistant County Exec. You got unless you got the roll already.
That's no big deal. I can do that. Mr. Van Tol?
Here.
Ms. Lazarus?
Here.
Mr. Burgandy?
Present.
Mr. Stewart?
Here.
And Mr. Begay?
Here.
All present, sir.
The minutes were sent out. Everybody have a copy of the minutes from February 21st.
Move to accept the minutes?
Second.
Motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By the way, for the audience, they are on the website, I believe. On the website. The minutes are usually posted after they're approved. Okay. All right. Citizens input. We have some citizens. There's a hand raised already. If you would state your name and what other information you want to give.
Everybody knows me. Fred Zippler. I see, I got your agenda here, and I see way down below here we have, you're having a discussion on the transportation program. I assume I cannot make any comments on that during your discussion, is that correct?
We'll be discussing it.
Well, I mean, is this now when I offer my input on it? I can't do it.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, here's my input. The transportation program is very necessary, needed by our veterans, all of our veterans. And more importantly, we got a heck of a bunch of drivers. We got a good team of drivers, some of which are here right now. They've been doing this for years. They work together. They're a good bunch of people. And we can't do anything foolish to interfere with that. Now, right now, I believe they're paid a whole $1 per person, or per veteran they take to the hospital, doctor, what have you. I would like to see that raised up to $5 per passenger. And now I see you got the schedule. You're gonna post the schedule of position. Craig, is that correct?
It's on there to discuss
Okay.
that.
Well, I ran some numbers just on my own at home. Using the average of 10 veterans per day, that would be roughly $50 a day we'd be paying our drivers. And depending on what you wanted to pay for the scheduler, that scheduler, by the way, right now is my other half, or well, I guess my better half. She's taking anywhere from 15 to 18 calls a day, which is, well, imagine your phone at home ringing 15 to 18 times a day when you're trying to take a shower or down doing laundry or putting the dog out. This should be a nicely compensated position, whomever would be given it. So again, with my numbers, I calculated just a rough estimate. It would cost approximately $23,000 per year to keep things as they are. I could go on for some more, but I don't think it's appropriate here. We can discuss that later. In addition, these drivers, there's how many, Frank, 9?
About 9, yeah.
I'd like to see them each get a phone. a cell phone, rather than using their own. Right now, we're paying $49.50 per month per hour for our scheduler to use, all the veterans call in on. And we really don't want to change that phone number. They tried to do it once, and it was just turmoil. We can't do that. Common sense, you can't do that. But anyhow, bottom line, I'd like to see the drivers $5 per head, per passenger. Cell phone. And please keep things together as they are. We got a heck of a team here. Let's don't bust them up. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Anything else? What am I forgetting? I guess that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Douglas?
I hope everybody knows who I am. Bruce Douglas. I'm the commander at the Veterans Rest. Veterans Rest is a home for homeless veterans. We take no money from the federal, state, county, or city. It's all funded by donations from the Veterans Rummage Shop. But we understand that the county got some money that was supposed to go to the homeless veterans. And we haven't heard about a penny of it. Some woman from General Motors come up and asked me if that was any help. And I said, we haven't heard about it. We don't know where that money went to. We were just checking to see if that was true, that it come to the county and we didn't get it. That's because we could certainly use it. We don't ask no money from the county. We don't ask no money from the city, federal, state. I seen Debbie Stabenow today, and I was talking to her, and she says, why don't you get money from the federal? Because I don't know how to write grants, and I don't care. I want that place to be run by fellow veterans, not by a bunch of people that don't understand what PTSD is. We do. And we want to. It isn't beautiful now, but when we're done, it will be. And I'll have up to 15 veterans living there, whether the city likes it or not, because we're going to do it. That's all I got to say.
You can respond, yeah, if you want to.
I saw Bruce Douglas at the VA last week, and he approached me about the same thing, and I told him to get a contact with the lady, find out how they wrote the check, where they sent the check to. Did you do that?
I don't my memory's not that long, John, anymore.
Well, yeah, we do that.
So I can't remember who the lady even was, but she said she worked for General Motors
Okay.
and that the check came to the county. But I want to find out who got that check, because that homeless shelter could certainly use it.
Well, they didn't come through Veterans Affairs downstairs, but they didn't come through there because there's no big checks in there.
I just,
Unless someone straight to the county.
I don't
Yeah.
know, because they didn't get a thank you letter or nothing for it, so they come in, and we don't run our organization like that. They give us a donation, we honor it.
Mr. Burr?
Yeah, Bruce, yeah, it was great to see you over the weekend as well. Thank you for all you're doing for our veterans here in Bay County, and congratulations on the success you've had to date. Coverage you got on M Live and in the Bay City Times last
I don't know
summer.
who did that.
Was great. That was great.
We write publicity. But every time I get publicity, the city comes in and wants money from it. And I
Well-
get the city off my back.
We'll check with the new Bay County treasurer to see if someone might have turned a check into the Bay County Treasurer's Office. I know it didn't come to the executive branch, but we should track that down if there was a check written and find out where that is, so you can.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll look into it. Any other public comment? Any other public comments? We'll close public comment. Petitions and Communications, Finance Reports. I believe we all received the financial report. Do you want to go over it? Any questions? Goulet, have any comments on the report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real brief, you'll notice on the report in the upper left-hand corner, there are three main reports that we had run, and these are, again, very high-level reports. If you would like more information about a specific line item or anything that's in there, we can give you as much detail as you would like. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see, for example, the first one I'm looking at for 2018, it has a 13 after it. That was through period 13 in finance world. That's kind of lumped everything together. It's for all of 2018 for right now. Things are still being paid, so that's for the for the year 2018. There's a 2019 report and then a 10-year history specifically on the Veterans Van Program. So you'll see that goes all the way back to 2009, and you can see the totals at the very bottom. But again, if you have any, I'll entertain any questions if you have. But again, we can certainly dive down into more information at a later date or at your choosing.
Any questions? We'll have some time to...
Craig, after I review this a little bit, is it okay if I send some emails?
Absolutely.
On questions that I have on this? Okay, thank you.
No problem.
One thing that I did want to bring up is there may be an issue with regards to burial or funeral expenses that are paid. We had a discussion about this, I believe, at the last board meeting in terms of whether or not those funds came out of the general fund from the county or if they came out of Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund dollars. There are two different statutes that deal with the payment, and I think that they conflict a little bit. There is an Attorney General opinion that is out there. However, I was not able to get my hands on it before the meeting because it's from 1954, and they don't have those online. So I'm waiting for the Attorney General's office to get me a copy of that report. So we'll be able to give you an update at the next board meeting or prior to, preferably, if at all possible, in terms of whether or not those funds should be coming out of the general fund as opposed to the millage dollars. And if that's the case, it's probably going to impact, obviously, the amount that you're going to have available to you in your budget and how you're going to want to expend those funds.
I remember reading the old legislation from like 1899, and I remember there was something in there about burials and a marker for the veterans in that legislation.
There's a couple of things actually, because right now the funds that you have at your discretion are what were formerly the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission funds. That's a very specific statute that states that you have certain qualifications that have to be met in order for you to give emergency relief to those veterans or their spouses. This particular burial statute is a separate statute, and it dictates that the County Board of Commissioners has to approve payment, which leads me to believe that the two funds are exclusive of each other because the County Board of Commissioners doesn't have control over the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission funds. So that's going to be a conflict that we have to check out to see where those expenses would correctly be billed to. If it's going to be billed to the County General Fund as opposed to the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission Fund, which is now your millage, then that will be an additional amount of money that you'll have at your discretion that won't be earmarked for in the budget for those expenses.
Any questions? All right, county email update. I believe that's Mr. Goulet.
Just real quick, there were some on here, like Mr. Van Tol and Mr. Stewart already have county emails, but Mr. Pagani and Ms. Lazar's, we did create those county emails. So if you have trouble or want to, just contact the ISD help desk. They will help set you up and get you logged in the first time so you can access those.
Okay.
Already done.
Perfect. So.
I didn't get the email from the county, from you, regarding the county email update. Did you send?
Because it went to a county email.
Correct.
Oh,
That's why you
okay, I
didn't.
see.
No, it didn't. It came to my personal email.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I didn't get it through my personal email.
I don't, pardon, I don't mean to, I don't remember sending it just specifically about the county emails. I know we were going to
Okay.
talk about it today. I didn't send an email just specifically about that, but just wanted to update on the status, that they were created, and just to contact the ISD help desk for access to get logged in. Those will be the emails that are posted on the website, so
Okay.
that's why it'll be important to, that's how you'll be contacted, so.
Website update. Next. You got that?
Back up again.
Yes.
All right.
Keep
All right,
busy.
so just real brief, we have been working on the website, getting the correct information on there, updating the format a little bit. For instance, today, the photo that will be taken, that will be up there as well. We'll be working on getting, like the minutes that were approved today, those will be uploaded along with the agendas and various things. We'll be utilizing that website a lot more. So it is being, it has been worked on, but more work will come as well. So just wanted to give you just a real brief update on that. So.
Yeah. Any questions? Emergency relief approval. Is that you, yeah?
Amber and I, we just briefly had a discussion on that. I may have to hand that off to her. Did you find it?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission was operating under, and I don't know what authority they were operating under in terms of making this determination. I think that they stated that the actual employees or the contracted workers, veteran service officers, were able to give emergency relief to individuals, I think, up to $750.
That's on my mind, yeah.
Okay. The statute is, again, from the late 1800s, and it actually gives the authority for those workers to give emergency relief up to $10. It has obviously not kept up with inflation. So if you do want to give the authority to the service workers to give more than $10, this is allowed under the statute, you are going to have a formal resolution that states that you're willing to do that. You would receive the information at every board meeting if there was emergency relief that was given, just so you don't have, this person isn't going to have to wait a month when they apply for benefits. If it's an emergency, by definition, a month is probably not going to cut it. So if you need to pass a resolution, you need to decide on the dollar amount that you're going to allow your veteran service workers to approve without formal board action.
And I think I've had Crystal contact at least 3 of you for a couple of the amounts just to get us to this point. But obviously something formal in the form of a resolution with that dollar amount would certainly help guide, when you would like to be contacted up to a dollar amount, or them make the determination. So.
And you can also, you can format the resolution any way you like. If you like the service worker to contact 2 board members individually to get approval from those board members before they take that action, you can do that as well.
Or you could do this, relief coordinator, service workers go to a certain amount without even having to go to the director, and then after a certain amount, then the director would have to go to the board.
It can be set up any way this board likes it to be set up.
But you're right, when they come in, they need assistance now, and if they're shutting their gas off today, we got to make the determination now. We can't wait a month until we meet again.
Sure.
So we got to have that, so we can work on a formal resolution, and just make a motion. Or do we need a formal resolution?
If you make a motion, it will be codified in a resolution.
Correct.
But you're going to need to make sure that all of you agree on the terms. If you want the person to be authorized up to a certain dollar amount on their own, if you want them to have to go to the director, if you want them to have to call certain board members, that's going to be up to your discretion in terms of what you want to do.
Mr. Brigant.
I believe once upon a time, the Soldiers and Sailors had procedures on how frequently people could come in and the limit of what they could get. Do we still have those procedures?
The guidelines were every 4 months they could come back in for emergency food relief.
Right.
And then on the other major things, it was like once a year or once every 2 years, unless there's another major emergency. And that would be left up to the board of the commission to decide if that fell within. If it was reasonable to pay again within the two years.
Okay, so seeing we know, in reality, we no longer have Soldiers and Sailors, correct?
Right.
So do we need to adopt those same rules of procedure for this organization?
We need
Because
to,
those rules will no longer pertain, because you don't have a Soldiers and Sailors Relief Board anymore.
I think with the giving the relief workers X amount of money and then giving the director X amount of money before they have to contact us, we could also put make a separate motion to codify how often they can get assistance. That would be a separate one. And however else,
Okay, but I thought we already had those rules under
well,
soldiers and
it was under
sailors.
soldiers, sailors, but
We don't have those rules.
We don't have
the only rules you got is what was handed down from the previous commissioners, like every 4 months they
Right.
could come in.
Right.
And then
So we could adopt those rules.
you could adapt the rules that are in place
As
and
they're-
then
yes.
change as needed.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Part of the difficulty I think that you're going to have is that Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission, because there were no guidelines under the statute in terms of how that commission should have run, was very loosely run for a long period of time. And while certain policies and procedures may have been followed just as a rule of thumb through some type of discussion, there was no formal policy or procedure that was actually adopted by the commission. There was never a formal writing that said, we as a commission are going to approve this policy or procedure. If the concern is at this point in time that you do want to have those limitations every 4 months, what is a maximum amount of money that somebody is allowed to give? My suggestion would be that this board have a policy draft, rules and guidelines drafted, and you have an opportunity to look at that before your next board meeting, and an opportunity to give input, and then you can vote to approve that or to approve it with changes, whatever you think is necessary. But then you have a formal working document that will give you the guidelines on what you want your veteran service workers to do. Because right now, there are none.
Do we want to set a limit at this point, emergency limit, or so we formally adopt some rules?
I would make a motion for the frontline service workers to have up to $850, and then the director have up to $3,000 before they can contact the commission.
With this,
Then after that point, then they would have to get the approval of the majority, the 3 out of the 5, for anything above that.
would this be a resolution to approve that pending formal adoption of procedures and guidelines? So this would be a temporary authorization until you approve guidelines?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Temporary.
Temporary until the guidelines are
Or
accepted.
support for that motion?
Support that.
Discussion. I just wonder how you got the 850 number. Is that something you had before, or?
The question is,
Pull it out of my hat.
Well, yeah,
the question is, who's the director?
He's director,
Okay,
yeah.
so Craig would be approving up to $3,500 out of soldiers and sailors. Correct?
3,000.
3,000.
3,000? Okay, got it.
So it's 850 for the frontline person, Crystal, I guess, and then up to 3,000 for the director, and then after that, it comes to the at least 3 out of 5 of the board.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion on that?
That usually, that 850 pretty much covers the vast majority of it, of the assistance needed.
I see some hands up, but we'll be, this is the temporary one, we'll be talking about it next meeting or further meetings, and then you can make comments, or you can make comments to anybody after the meeting if you want.
After we get the guideline
Right.
proposal resolution together.
Right. Okay, so that's 850, frontline, 3,000 for the director. Any more discussion? All those in favor, well, we probably should take the roll call. Roll call vote, it's money.
Roll call.
Mr. Van Tol,
Yes.
Ms. Lazars,
Yes.
Mr. Brigandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
and Mr. Begay.
Yes. All right, so, and then I guess we need to look at those, maybe the old rules, and take a look at those before the next meeting and come back with some more concrete ideas.
That's okay.
I guess if we need a subcommittee to meet, or I guess we can meet as a committee at whole. I'm not sure how you want to handle it. If you want to have, I know John was on that committee. I don't think we can have a quorum, though.
If you choose to do a committee of the whole, it'll have to be a public meeting.
Yeah, okay.
But you could have 3 members as a committee, meet, come up with some guidelines, and then bring that resolution back to those guys, to the full board,
As a policy committee, sure.
as a policy committee.
Okay. So
I
you,
would recommend having a policy committee.
okay.
Well, before we have a policy committee, is it legal and prudent for us to coordinate on this digitally, online, email, send some drafts around and take a hack on them and go, yeah, this looks like a decent draft to start with?
If it's sent individually to different board members, yes. It cannot be sent in a group email to board members.
Right.
Because group email will be considered a quorum.
Right, but John could send it to me and I could take a look, make comments, and then send it back to him, and then he could send it to Troy. And yeah,
Whoever's
okay.
on
Yep.
it, just go back and forth.
Now, that way we can get something done without having to have a meeting. We can have something set up before we have a meeting
Right.
that we've all sort of looked at.
And if you're looking for administration to draft the guidelines of the policy that you want to follow, what we would need is just the general guidelines that have been previously followed by the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission in that regard, so we have a working document to start with.
You can do that.
All right, anything else on that?
Are you going to set up a committee?
Yes. Volunteers, we're always looking for volunteers. We got Don, Marilyn. Okay, that's right. Okay,
Well, unless you want to do it, Mike?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay.
okay. So there's that.
And we
That
should
group.
use our county email for this.
Correct.
So you gotta get your email set up.
Hit forward.
You had the old,
Yeah, I got my email, you get your email.
you had the old guidelines, loose guidelines.
We can probably seek some public input. I'm sure there's some input from the public that would be interested. Alrighty, board rules. Yes, the rules was distributed at the last meeting. Anybody have any comments on the board rules? Yes, Mr. Gandy.
I have a question and then I have a comment. My question is on Article 1, Section 1, meetings. Third Tuesday of each month. Any regular or adjourned meeting of the committee which falls upon a legal holiday shall be automatically be set over. Why is adjourned in there?
I don't have a copy of the
I can read it to you exactly if you would like.
Sure.
Regular meetings of the Bay County Veterans Affairs Committee shall be held on the third Tuesday of each month, period. Any regular or adjourned meeting of the committee which falls upon a legal holiday shall automatically be set over to the next regular day following that is not a legal holiday. So I don't understand why adjourned is in there. If we're talking about scheduled meetings haven't been adjourned. They've been scheduled.
I don't have an answer for you.
I just like you to consider it before it's approved.
I can tell you that I took the County Board of Commissioner
Yes.
guidelines. Obviously, some of the stuff wasn't pertinent to the committee, removed that.
Right.
So some of that language, that is verbatim what was in, so that's.
I would just ask somebody to take a look at it because I don't understand it.
And it may be that they're using adjourned in terms of set over. If you have a meeting that got set over to a following Tuesday, and that happens to be a legal holiday, then it would get moved over again.
Yeah,
But I will
that's
double check.
Right.
We've had some meetings are moved to Wednesday, that were scheduled on Tuesday, like to January 1st, and we would move to January 2nd, that was our first meeting. I don't think it would affect us too much, but
And the other thing is on page 2, it goes from subparagraph 8 to subparagraph 1, which I think is supposed to be a 9.
It was in Word Perfect format, so it was.
Got it.
Microsoft Word didn't like some of the importing, so that should be easily changed.
There's a couple other numbered problems in there.
Okay.
any other Other comments on the rules?
I have one, Mr. Chair. Under Article 5, there should be a definition for duties of secretary. We can add that.
So maybe this will be the first reading, and we'll,
Sure.
usually we take 2 readings on them to approve them. So look them over, come back next month. Okay. All righty. Next issue, transportation program. Number 1 is scheduler position. Who would like to make comments? Anybody want to make?
I can open it up. So I've been in communication with various members associated with the transportation program. And John, who is part of the Soldier Sales Relief Commission, can discuss this as well. But we discussed this possibly making a scheduler a paid position when previous scheduler back last year retired, and we did not have another volunteer at that time to fill that spot. So to keep the program going, we made that duty and that the responsibility of the scheduler to fall on our emergency relief coordinator. And she would operate that program while she was here working. So there were some changes to hours, that phone calls were being taken and whatnot. About a month after that had taken place, I was approached again by volunteers that wanted to take that function back over, so the program went back over with the volunteers. That's where it's currently at now, but I have just recently had more conversation about checking in to see if the possibility of that being a paid position.
Well, I know when Crystal took it over, there was about a month, because she was taking calls between 8 and 3, and then she would put the schedule out to the drivers. Within that month, most of the veterans got on board. She was taking appointments for rides 2 to 3 weeks in advance. So her telephone calls went down after the initial week or 2. The call volume went down. The daily call volume went down. Then once they got taken back over by the volunteers, some of the veterans came into the office and they weren't happy with it going back to volunteers. They liked it when it was run under a set time, 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I can call for my appointment on Monday. Oh, I got one for Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, and Thursday the following week. They just called once and they were happy with that. They got one call for multiple appointments. And she and Mark would keep a spreadsheet of that month. I got these people on this day, these people on that day, and those veterans only heard from the people that liked it, of course, and that they were in favor of it. So if this goes to a paid position, I would get back with Crystal and Mark and see if we can bring it back in to their office, where they can do it from between 8 and 3, and then get the schedule out to the drivers. That would eliminate a volunteer schedule.
You're going to lose every driver. Yep, there's always every damn one for the
That's not how it went.
You got why are you trying to fix something that ain't broke? Yeah, John. Yeah, 15 missed phone calls a day. That he handed me that phone, there's 15 missed calls.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
If there's anyone from the public that wants to come and give input, they should step up to the podium, announce their name, and give input, but you must first be recognized by the chair. Speaking from the audience is not the way in which we do that.
Yep. Yeah, we'll go out of regular order here and take some comments from this will be the second citizens input section here.
Frank Lewandowski, I used to run that program. And the day that Craig handed me that phone, 50 missed calls. My comment was, she should be fired. Because, hon, you don't run a show from 8 to 3, 5 days a week. This is a 6-day operation from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. If you think you guys are going to run it, you're going to You better start hiring some drivers, because every one of us will walk.
I think that there's some misunderstanding in terms of how the program is set up in terms of funding. The way the program has consistently been set up in terms of funding for Soldiers and Sailors Relief in this particular program is that the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Commission, which is now this board, provides the funding for the vehicles, the insurance for the vehicles, the fuel for the vehicles, and a limited amount of reimbursement for the drivers that drive the vehicles. This is a majority volunteer-operated program. If the wish is that the scheduler be turned into a paid position, and the requirement for the scheduler is that a person must work 6 days a week from 8 in the morning until 8 in the afternoon, it will bankrupt this board's budget. There is no way that you can pay an individual for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in order to...
I did it all these years.
In order to take calls. The reason that this has worked in terms of the financial constraints that we have is because it was a substantially volunteer-driven program. If we're changing this to a paid system, that would be an incredible amount of overtime in addition to even if it's just
Salary position, salary.
and again, salary positions are only allowed under the Fair Labor Standards Act under very certain exemptions, and this position would not qualify. So this would have to be an hourly position. The amount of overtime that would be paid would be substantial simply to take the calls. I think that what Mr. Van Hall is saying is that the drivers can continue to drive whenever they need to drive. It's just the calls that come in from the veterans who want to schedule their appointments can only come in during those set hours that we would have an employee on site to answer the phone.
You can't run it from 8 to 3. There's no way.
That's when the calls would come in, not when the drivers would drive.
Crystal tried to change everything within 24 hours. She changed the phone number. She changed everything that same day. And veterans are calling 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30 in the afternoon. Oh, they never got a ride the next day. Never got a ride. And we're supposed to provide that ride to these veterans.
And certainly, if all of the veterans could be given notification well in advance that...
She didn't.
But sir, we're here now. We're here now and we're talking about changing this position now. And if we're going to do it now, what I'm telling you is, what would happen is everyone would get notification that this is going to be the telephone number to call. These are going to be the hours that you can call in. It's not going to change necessarily the time in which the drivers can drive the veterans, because they may have a 5 o'clock appointment. That's fine. It's just if they're going to have a 5 o'clock appointment, they're going to have to call between 8 and 3 the day before in order to schedule it. Because if you want this to be a position where that person is getting reimbursed, it's going to have to be within the time constraints that we have if we want to be able to afford to pay that person.
Well, that's fine. Let's do the 8 to 3 deal, but she tried to do it overnight. Overnight, and it don't work.
And I don't know what happens during that time period. I don't know how it all went. I'm just saying, this is what this board would have to decide to do from this point forward. You know, whatever happened in the past.
Well, that's fine. We can notify all the veterans, send them all letters, saying this is your responsibility from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. Call the 525 number and go from there. Not ignore 50 calls that veterans never got a ride. They never did. Should have been canned. Exactly what I told him. That's why Fred and I came back and took the program back over, because she ran it right down to the ground. She ran down to the ground.
Well, all I can tell you is that certain guidelines would have to be adopted, and at that point, we would expect any veteran service officer to comply with those guidelines.
Mr. Barsha,
Frank,
a comment?
do you think a little later, like 10 till 4 or 5 would be, is 8 a good time? Do you recall a lot of the calls came in from?
I got guys calling me, the guy from Pitt County calls me 5 after 7 every morning when he needed a ride. But I would go with the 10 to 5 ordeal. That would give the dispatcher plenty of time to get the list together for the next day, call the driver at 5:30, and now you're still at normalcy.
Yeah. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Thanks.
And we can't, I didn't know that happened, but, you know.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Was that about a year ago? Or?
Frank, let me ask you a question. This guy that calls at 7 a.m. from Pitt County, when's his appointment for?
2 days later.
2 days later, so...
Yeah, you got to call.
So if you told this guy, hey, you can only call between 8 and 2, wouldn't be an issue.
No.
I think what we, in my personal opinion, what we've done is we have attempted to provide a service to the veterans of this county without considering the limitations that we have. You know, it would be fantastic to operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Financially, we don't have the money to do that. And if we want to turn something into a paid position, then it's going to have to be put out that it's a limited time frame between 8 and 2 every day or whatever. You know, I've been looking at the way other counties do it. Every county does a veterans transportation
They
program
don't.
differently.
No, none of the other counties have what we have.
I know it. Every county does it totally differently. Roscommon County, you use your own vehicle, you get 53 cents a mile to drive a veteran to the VA hospital.
But they have to meet the van at a certain designated spot. Can I talk to these drivers?
No, in Roscommon County, it's an individual that drives his vehicle. Now, there's other counties, Crawford County,
Gladwin does.
Gladwin, they meet a van at a specific location at a specific time. Every county does it totally differently. Genesee County, everybody uses their MDOT.
Their regular county
Yeah, their
transportation.
county bus system. I would say in the interim, we find a solution and continue to investigate what is actually the best fiscally responsible solution for Bay County. You know, we transported, according to figures I have here, in the last year, we transported approximately 1,347 veterans.
That's trips.
That's trips, yes, okay. Maybe, you know, one veteran doing 12 trips, one veteran doing 1 trip. But about 1,500 trips. What's that costing us? What's the cost? By the time I got $60,000 in vehicles, and what am I paying for gas, and what am I paying for maintenance, and all that other kind of stuff? So I think we got to look at what's the cost. I know what we've been doing has been working, but is it the best solution for the veterans in the county?
Well, the 2 county cars are donated from the sheriff's department. The white van the county bought.
Yeah.
The newest blue van was donated to the county. So the 2 cars donated by the sheriff's department, they're getting really high up on miles.
Yeah.
So,
And then do we need 4 vehicles for the program?
yeah,
You gotta have at least 2.
Yeah.
We have 4 vehicles on
Yes.
the road every day.
yes.
Every day we got 4 vehicles on the road.
I hauled two wheelchairs, and I had a wheelchair and Amigo yesterday. I
I'm
drove
just asking, we got 4 cars on the road every day.
2.
Okay.
You gotta have backup vehicles.
So if we got 2 on the road every day, we gotta have 1 backup at least.
Right.
So should we keep the 4th car? That's a decision we gotta make to get the biggest bang for the buck, to make sure we have the money when it's needed for the transportation of the veteran. We can't continue to pay insurance, plates and stuff on a vehicle if we don't really need that vehicle.
Well, right now,
We could, and the repairs on that vehicle would be better put into actually transporting the vehicle, the veterans.
I went to Hagen Ford yesterday, got an estimate to get the white van fixed, the newest one. That could be in the shop 3 to 5 days, which means nobody, wheelchair or Amigo, will be hauled. So,
Mr. Stewart had a comment here.
I just want to make mention to everybody in the audience, first and foremost, we're veterans too, and just understand that when you get excited about some topics, we understand we're in the same position. We want to do what's best for the greater need. Change is not easy, we understand that. The timeline of the calls from 8 to 8 o'clock at night, and maybe in this day and age, just isn't feasible for people's work schedules. However, I would tell you, as a veteran myself that uses the VA, those appointments were made between 8 and 8 either. So the veteran does have an obligation, per Mr. Bergani, to call at a respectable time. The VA is not making an appointment for them at 8 o'clock at night, nor are they making an appointment for them at 8 o'clock on the weekends. Those appointments are made between 8 o'clock and probably 3 o'clock. So there's ample time for them to make that call. We're trying to do what's best for all of our veterans. and we have to watch the money, and we have to watch the bottom line, and we also have to hold people accountable. And those veterans, if the old saying, if the lack of planning on their part doesn't constitute emergency honors all the time, nothing against the veteran. And I understand some of the veterans have problems with maybe a last-minute cancellation. We're in the same boat. Myself, Marilyn, and Pergani, between the three of us, we've spent over 60 years in active duty military. We fully understand the needs of veterans, and we're going to do the best we can to get them to the hospital. But they also have to understand there has to be regulations, there has to be accountability, because we have to account to the board and we have to account to the taxpayers of Bay County. So, thank you.
We have some other people that wanted to comment back there. Let's get those in, and then we'll have to probably wrap it up and form a committee to study this.
Fred Zippler again. Let me make a few corrections here. The phone hours are 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. Sunday, 12 to 5, no phone service on Saturday. That's fact. That's the way it is. Number two, when we got the phones back, and I talked to the veterans, I know, damn near every one of them was so happy we got the phones back. They were just pleased as punch, not to mention all the drivers that were happy. Number three, I'm going to offer you guys a solution to this scheduler, is that the way you have it? Scheduler position. Leave it go like it is. Me and Linda will take care of it. There you go.
You're saying as volunteers?
Volunteers. Just
drove for
please
2
take
years.
care of the drivers, that's all.
I drove for 2 years and I was a volunteer, and I started out at 5 in the morning till late at night. So if you're a volunteer, you're not on the clock, you're volunteering,
That's
whatever it
exactly
takes.
what we're going to do, just like we're doing it now.
Fred, I'd like to say thank you for doing that, but I would pare back the hours a little bit.
You can't do that, I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
A lot of these people, or well, a lot of them, some of them are, they've got mental problems. They forget to call. Sometimes they get a card in the mail, they forget to call. Sometimes they don't get a card in the mail. Remember, the VA is not a model of efficiency, just like any government. They'll get a call back from they'll call, say, the eye clinic, and you won't get connected. You have to punch in an extension, leave a message. They'll call you back 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon, which is fact, because it's happened to me more than once. And I deal with 5 different clinics down there. They won't get a call back till 4:30 in the afternoon. Not saying everybody, but that's what happens. And we have no problem running that phone 8 to 5. No problem at all. We're volunteers now, Linda and I. We're going to do this for free.
Lazar?
Ma'am?
Fred, how do you feel if it was a paid position?
It doesn't need to be paid.
But how do you feel about that? If, you're gone, Linda's gone, then who does it pass on to? Do you get volunteers all the time?
When you say gone, you mean croaked?
No, I don't mean that. I mean, if you got ill or you...
Vacation.
That phone works. That phone works on the East Coast. It works in the UP. It works in Missouri. It works all over. So, Troy.
And I know I have a VA appointment this Thursday in Detroit. I have probably had 3 text messages, an email, and 16 phone calls
Yeah.
from the VA, just to be exaggerating. Is it possible, most of these patients are regular riders, is it possible to be added to the auto call from one of the VA's calls as a driving unit? Has that ever been looked into? And if not, I'd be happy to look into that with the VA.
You may have
Because they
to-
send out, I bet, seriously, probably 3 calls this week on my phone call and my phone and text to remind me of my appointment. Is
Yeah, I
it
know.
possible for that to come to maybe our volunteer coordinator, or to Crystal, or to Mark? Is it possible to have a point of contact where that email can come up for the veterans that forget? I mean, if we can say as a reminder, then we can call them and say, do you know you have an appointment today at 10? We're just calling, or
Well,
tomorrow at 10 to remind you, do you need
It's
to write?
probably possible, but if you have, how many you have for tomorrow? 13, right? Let's use tomorrow, for example. We have 13 riders tomorrow.
But most of them will call us, and we'll already know. But what about the ones
Yeah.
we miss? If we get an auto call, we can check the other.
If they miss, they're out of luck.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think the VA, has anybody ever looked into a driver program?
No.
Will the VA send a notice to a driving agency, let you know that you have an elderly veteran that may forget and they have an appointment this Thursday? That way the driver coordinator knows and it can make a call to make sure.
It would be more advantageous to send
I'll be
a,
there Thursday. I will have no problem asking when I get to the VA if that's possible. If that's-
it would be advantageous to call our number, not the driver.
No, that's what I mean. The point
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
dispatch number, yes,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
On the auto call, I mean.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, the veteran have to sign up.
Because we hate to miss somebody.
Text message.
right. I know, I get,
Listen, and you say, hey, he's got one coming in, because I had the same thing, the same text saying, hey, you got an appointment, you got an appointment. I got multiple notifications,
Yeah.
but if they went to your phone, and you see you don't have a Bob scheduled for that date, you could call.
yeah, now they would have to specify the person's name. No, Joe Smith, Jane Smith,
VA
whatever.
does a very good job of notification, so.
And what time their appointment is, where it is, yeah, yeah.
We're running out of time. One more person for comment back. to you.
Anyhow,
Okay.
forget the schedule, but we'll take care of it.
Okay.
I'm Constance Grimmer. I'm not a veteran, I'm just a volunteer. And I just wanted to say, within our U.S. mail system, a lot of veterans don't get information on their appointments till 4:30 that day. But they still have the opportunity to call to say, I have an appointment the next day. So we get a lot of those people, and they're able to get through to Linda. But before, when we had Crystal doing this, the drivers couldn't even get Crystal, let alone some of the patients for the VA. They couldn't get Crystal. We couldn't get Crystal, and it was just pure chaos. But when it went back to us, everybody got through to Linda, so it became normal again. That's just what I wanted to say.
Mr. Douglas, last one, and we'll have to wrap it here.
Okay, when I started this program with my own car, for 5 years, it didn't cost the county 1 penny. I paid for the gas, I paid for the oil, I paid for all the transportation. It didn't cost the county 1 penny. I covered it all with my own money. And if that's what you want us to go back to, that find somebody to cover it, that's what I'll do. I'll find somebody to cover it without this county being petty about it.
Can I make just a quick comment?
Yeah. Put you on the microphone.
Yeah, Derek Taylor. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Anyway, I've been driving for 4.5 years, and you talk about the mental capability of some of these vets. Today, I got a call to contact one of the other drivers to let him know that he's ready, and I don't drive today. I've gotten calls 2 o'clock in the morning from veterans, been out, tipping a little. I still answer the phone. My wife doesn't care for that too much, but I'll answer the phone. And then the same veteran called me yesterday and told me to contact Carol, let him know that he's ready to go home. We don't have a Carol. So I just thought, some of these veterans are, way out there. But everything's running smooth and fine and dandy right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't think we have any resolution at this point. I think probably some ongoing discussion is needed, some comments, so. And then another part was the compensation for drivers, so we'll.
I just got one comment for if we compensate the drivers, if they get paid, they'll have to have a chauffeur's license if they're being paid to transport people.
I think they do right now, if I remember.
I talked to the Secretary of State. If it's a volunteer, if you're not getting paid, you don't need a chauffeur's license. But as soon as you get paid, I'd almost assume that $1 per rider could be construed as paid. They should have a chauffeur's license. That's something that you gotta look at. So then, who pays for the chauffeur's license for the drivers? Would the board pay for, okay, you're a volunteer driver, who will pay for your chauffeur's license?
I'm sure there's some liability issues involved too, a lawyer would agree to.
Corporate counsel.
And my overriding question is, as it relates to agenda item 6D, are we referring that over to the next meeting for further discussion without formalizing?
We'll have to decide.
Conversation with drivers.
And I will look into the chauffeur's license and liability.
All right, any old business? New business? Announcements?
I will not be able to make the next meeting, but didn't we say we could almost phone in or get in on the computer?
If it's clear with the board chair first.
Just clear.
And a motion to adjourn is always in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Thank you.